Chapter 6 of the Odyssey, The Sorceress. Soon we reached the floating island of Aeolia, where Aeolus, god of the winds, lives. He entertained me for a whole month and asked many questions about Troy and the return of the Greeks. I satisfied his curiosity as best I could. When at last I spoke of leaving and asked for his help, he agreed. He gave me the skin of an ox, which he made into a bag. He bound all the raging winds and trapped them in the bag. He freed only the west wind to help us on our voyage home. A good idea, but our own stupidity spoiled it. So you just answered questions number 1. They reached the floating island of Aeolia, where Aeolus, the god of the winds, lives. Number 2, he gives him a bag of winds. We sailed splendidly for 9 days. On the 10th, we saw at last the island of our homeland. We could even see men on shore tending to their fires. Happy but exhausted, I fell asleep. While I slept, the men spoke to each other, declaring that I was taking home gold and silver, presents from Aeolus. One of the men said, "What a lucky man this Odysseus is. He comes home wealthy from Troy, but the rest of us comrades on the long journey come home empty-handed. Out of friendship, Aeolus has given him all the gold and silver the bag can hold. Hurry, let's see what he has there." The evil suggestion took hold. The men untied the bag and all the winds rushed out. The storms bore them far away from home, and me with them. When I awoke, I debated whether I ought to perish in the sea and be done with it, or still continue the attempt to get home. I decided to fight it out. The winds carried us back to Aeolia. There we went ashore and took on water. My companions ate near the ships. With a companion, I went again to the house of Aeolus. I found him at a banquet. "Why are you back here, Odysseus?" he asked. "Surely we sent you away fully provided for the homeward journey." "Evil companions are responsible," I replied, "and sleep. But help me again, dear friends, for you have the power." Thus I tried to soothe them with gentle words, but no one answered. At last Aeolus said, "Get away from here at once, foul man. I do not wish to have anything to do with a person who is cursed by the gods. Away at once." I left with a heavy heart. We sailed off, grieving at our misfortune. So question number 3 says, when approaching Ithaca, Odysseus falls asleep and his comrades open the bag of winds. Number 4, upon opening the bag, they are immediately sent back towards Aeolia, where Aeolus refuses to help them again. Oh, you could probably see the answers right there. So those are the answers for 1 through 4. Okay. I left with a heavy heart. We sailed off grieving at our misfortune. This time we had no help from the winds. We sailed for 6 days. On the 7th we came to a city of Lamos called Laestrygonia. We entered a fine harbor. Inside the harbor 2 headlands projected, forming a quiet pool ideal for ships. All the other ships sailed into this narrow haven. Through some good fortune, I decided not to enter this inner harbor, but kept my ship outside. I climbed a rugged peak to get a view. Smoke rising off in the distance. I sent some messengers to inquire about the people. They went ashore and were directed to the king's palace. Inside, they found the king's wife, a giantess as big as the peak of a mountain. Her husband arrived soon after, another monster. He snatched up one of my men and prepared his supper. The other 2 escaped, but the monster set up a cry. Out came the strong Laestrygonians, giants, not men. They threw heavy stones at the ships trapped in the narrow harbor. Cries arose from the stricken ships as the men were thrown into the water. The giants stuck the men like fish and carried them off for their feast. While the horrible spectacle was going on in the inner haven, I cut the cables of my ship and urged my comrades to exert themselves in rowing. Our one ship escaped. All the others were destroyed, with all the men. We sailed on from that place, rejoicing at our own good luck, but miserable over the loss of our friends. Next, we reached the island of Aea. Okay, so let's go back. Number 5. After sailing for 7 days, they came to the city of Lastrygonia. There lives giants, not men. Number 6. While their ships are in the harbor, the giants begin throwing heavy stones at the ships. So you have giants, and heavy stones. Then number 7. Then they proceed to stick them like fish and carry them off for their feast. Anybody know the word for sticking frogs? I feel like we talked about this. It's called gigging. So they were gigging, basically, Odysseus's men. They were sticking them with a spear. So we leave Lastrygonia, and it says, we sailed on from this place, rejoicing at our own good luck, but miserable over the loss of our friends. Next, we reached the island of Aea, home of the goddess Circe. We disembarked there and lay grief-stricken for 2 days. On the 3rd day, I meant to have a look around. I went to a lookout for signs of human habitation. Off in the distance, I could see smoke, and as it turned out, from the palace of Circe. I debated whether I ought to go first, but on second thought, I decided to care for my men and to send some scouts on ahead. Okay, so the next one is, finally, number 8. Finally, they land on an island where Circe lives. Okay. As luck would have it, I came upon a huge stag coming down to drink, and I struck him, and the spear passed right through him. I went back to the ship carrying the stag across my back. I threw it down in front of the ship and cheered my men. I think stag's a vocab word. It's a deer. Come, my friends, we're not lost. We certainly won't starve to death. Their spirits revived when they saw the magnificent stag. They prepared a glorious banquet, and we feasted the whole day. In the morning, I called them together and addressed them. My friends, east and west, mean nothing to us here. I don't know what to do. We're on an island in the middle of the sea. There's no other land in sight, but I did see smoke off in the distance. Any suggestions? When I said this, they shivered in terror, for they remember the deeds of the Lastrygonian cannibals and the giant Cyclops. They wept bitterly. Much good that did. I divided our group into 2 parties, each with a leader. I commanded one party, and Eurylochus led the other. We shook lots in a helmet, and the lot of Eurylochus fell out. He prepared to go, though he and his companions wept. They were nervous, for they knew not what lay ahead of them. At last they set off. High on a hilltop in the woods they found the house of Circe. All around were fierce wolves and lions, which she had tamed. They did not attack the men, but wagged their tails as friendly as you please. The men heard the goddess Circe singing with a beautiful voice. One of them spoke to his comrades. Friends, someone inside is singing beautifully. Let's go in, whether she's a goddess or a woman, and speak to her. They shouted to her, and she came out at once. When she asked them to come in, they followed her innocently. Only Eurylochus stayed outside, fearing some trick. She led them in and invited them to be seated. Then she prepared a meal of cheese and honey, but she mixed magic drugs with the food. When they had eaten, she struck them with a rod and herded them into the pigsty, for they now had pigs' heads, grunts, and bristles. Indeed, she had changed them wholly into swine. But their minds were the minds of men. They wept aloud as she penned them up. She threw them beechnuts and acorns, the kind that pigs like to eat. Eurylochus came back at once to tell us the news of the sorcery. He could scarcely speak, so grief-stricken was he, but we were so amazed at his behavior that he finally spoke to us. We went through the woods as you commanded, Odysseus, until we came to the source of the smoke. We found a beautiful home on a hill. Inside, some goddess or woman was singing in a beautiful voice. Our comrade shouted. She came out, called to them, and led them inside. They all followed innocently enough, but I stayed out, fearing a trap. They all vanished. I waited and waited, but no one came out. That's the last I saw of them. So number 9 says, they find her singing in her house, and several men go inside. They do not come out because they are turned into pigs. You could write pigs or you can write swine, which is the vocab word. I set off. Oh, very well, Eurylochus, I replied. Stay here. Wait, I'm going. I set off for the house at once. When I got near the house of Circe, who should meet me but Hermes, god of the golden wand? He was in the form of a young man. He took me by the hand and said, Poor fool, where are you going alone in a country you know nothing about? Are you going to free your companions who have been enchanted by Circe? This is what you think. You will be trapped there just as the others were. But I'm willing to help you. Take this powerful drug. It will help you to ward off the magic tricks of Circe. She will prepare a magic mixture for you, but the drug will keep you from falling under the spell. When she strikes you with her wand, then draw your sword quickly and rush towards her as if to kill her. Crouching in fear, she will ask for mercy. Make her swear an oath that she will plan no further evil for you or your companions. Hermes gave me the magic root and explained its power. Then he went off to high Olympus and left me to set out once again for the house of Circe. When I reached the gate, I cried out, and Circe invited me in. She prepared a mixture for me, and when she gave it to me, I drank it off at once. She changed her tone, struck me with a rod, and said, Off to the sty with you. Go lie with your other comrades. As she spoke, I drew my sharp sword, rushed at her as if to kill her. She cried out loudly, fell down on her knees, and begged for mercy. Who are you? Where do you come from? What is the name of your homeland? How could you resist the power of these drugs? No other man has been able to resist their power, but you have withstood them. Are you Odysseus, the man the gods always prophesied would come to me? Have pity on me. I answered at once, Circe, how could you command me to be gentle with you? You've turned my men into swine. I can have no mercy until you swear an oath that you will plot no further evil against me. She pledged her word as I commanded. She prepared an elaborate banquet, but I couldn't eat. I sat there brooding about many things. When Circe saw me refuse food, she said, Odysseus, why are you sitting so quietly like a man with many problems on his mind? Do you think this is another trick? You need fear no longer. I have given my word. Circe, I replied, what man could bear to feast while his companions are in bondage? If you wish me to eat, free my companions so that I can see them with my own eyes. Circe rose and left the palace with the rod in her hand. She opened the gates of the sty and drove out my comrades in the guise of swine. She rubbed a new drug on each. The bristles dropped away, and they became men again, younger and more handsome than ever. They recognized me at once and grasped my hand, sobbing aloud for joy. Even Circe was touched. Odysseus, she said at last, go back to your ship, draw it up the shore, put your arms in the caves, and bring all your comrades back. His arms are his weapons. Okay, so let's go back real fast. Number 10, Odysseus goes to rescue the men, but is met by Hermes. He gives him advice on how to rescue his men. And number 11, you're going to find out that he stayed for a year, which he did not know. So number 11 is a year. They rushed to obey me, but Eurylochus held back. Poor fools, he said, where are you going? Are you looking for trouble at Circe's palace? Do you want to be turned into swine, wolves, or lions to act as her unwilling bodyguards? Remember that last man who followed Odysseus into the cave of Cyclops? They didn't return either. Ooh, Eurylochus makes a good point. Okay, we're almost done. You guys got this. For a moment, I thought I'd slay him on the spot, even though he was related to me. But my comrades soothed me, saying, come, Odysseus, we'll leave him here if you wish. He can guard the ship. Lead us on, though, to Circe's. We're all for your plan. They left the ship. Even Eurylochus came sheepishly after, for he feared my wrath. We found our comrades banqueting at the palace. When both groups met, they were overcome with emotion. Circe, who was standing near me, broke in. No more mourning, Odysseus. I know about your troubles, your adventures on the sea and land. Come, eat and drink until you become as gay as when you left Ithaca. You are not too cheerful, certainly, for you have suffered a great deal. Thus she persuaded us. For a full year we enjoyed ourselves on the island of Circe. At the end of that time my companion spoke to me. Master, if you ever expect to reach your home island again, you better be giving your return some thought. I agreed. That night I again begged assistance from Circe, saying, Fulfill your promise, O Circe, that you would send me home. My thoughts turned homeward. I longed to go back. Very well, Odysseus, she replied. Don't stay here against your will. But there is another voyage you must take. You must go to the land of the dead. There, in the kingdom of Hades and Persephone, you must consult the soul of Tiresias, a blind prophet. Even as a spirit, he has wisdom and understanding. So number 12, to return home safely, they must go to the land of the dead and speak to Tiresias. So on your copy, you should see that underlined as well. Okay, we got this. My heart was heavy at her words. I sat down and I wept. I felt there was no point in living. Turning to her, I said, Alas, Circe, who could guide me on this voyage? No one has ever gone to the land of the dead in a ship. I can direct you, she replied. When you get there, dig a trench. Pour offerings to all the dead. Promise that you will make sacrifices to the spirits when you return to Ithaca. Pledge an extra sacrifice to Tiresias himself. Then sacrifice on the spot 2 sheep, which I will give to you. Many souls will come to drink the blood of the sheep. Keep them all away until the spirit of Tiresias comes. When he comes, he will prophesy to you about your homeward voyage. He will tell you how you may return over the sea. She left me. I went through the house, arousing my comrades. Wake up, we must be off. Circe has given us good advice. They all obeyed, but even there we had trouble before we left. In our company was a young man named Elphenor, not too brave or intelligent. Heavy with wine, he had been sleeping on the roof to keep cool. Hearing the noise of our preparation, he rushed up suddenly, forgetting for the moment where he was. He fell backwards off the roof, breaking his neck at once. His soul went straight to the land of the dead. When the men had assembled, I addressed them. You're probably thinking that we're off for our dear native land. Circe, though, has shown us another way. We must first go to the land of the dead to consult the soul of Tiresias, the blind prophet. Poor fellows, they began to weep. Okay, so the last question says, prior to leaving, Elphenor falls asleep on the roof and he meets his death. Okay, so that was chapter 6. Great job if you listened all the way through. You got all the answers if you did.